Welcome back to this final lesson of the encryption, server-side encryption on Amazon S3 with the command line interface. Now, so far we've looked at encrypting individual objects when uploading to Amazon S3 through the command line interface. But what if you want to encrypt everything that goes inside a bucket, right? So that once you encrypt a certain bucket, or once you put a policy that says encrypt everything inside a bucket, then you don't need to individually encrypt objects inside the bucket. And I think that's a very efficient and safe way to encrypt, so that you don't forget to encrypt an item by mistake. So I'm going to create a new bucket. I'm going to show you how to do that with the console first, right? So with the console, basically test bucket 1 2 3. I'm going to name a random bucket. Next, now on the second page, in the default encryption, it says automatically encrypt objects when stored in Amazon S3. Now if I wanted to do this through the console, I would choose either of this, which is server-side encryption S3, or this, which is server-side encryption KMS, and I have to provide a key. So for this demonstration, I'm going to choose the first option, the second option, AES 256, save, next, create bucket. So when I click on that bucket, when I go to properties, then I can see that there's a check mark here, automatically encrypt objects when stored in Amazon S3. Now what if I want to do that through the command line interface? So let's move on to the command line, and I'm going to link some documentation so that you can look into the documentation and see where I found the commands that I'm using now. So but before we start, I want to remind you to update your AWS CLI if you haven't, because I ran into a problem when I tried to call this make an API call, and apparently my the version of my AWS CLI was outdated. So if you run into a problem when doing this lab, then you might want to upgrade with this command, sudo pip AWS CLI upgrade. This will upgrade your AWS CLI. And if you're on Windows, I think you can do the same thing with pip AWS CLI upgrade. Alright, so I've already done this, so I'm not going to do this again. Now basically for this lab to encrypt the whole bucket to encrypt the files by default, or encrypt the objects by default in a bucket when they're uploaded, I need to create a rule, and I can pass that into a command that I put. So I have a JSON policy like text. I'm going to show it to you. So it's like a IAM policy, right? But it's not exactly an IAM policy, but it's a rule that says apply server-side encryption by default, and I can choose the algorithm. In this case, it's AWS KMS, and I also can choose the master key ID. So I have this file on my folder already, so I'm going to include this file as well, this text on the description, so you don't have to type it in. So I have this file on my current folder, and what I want to do is say AWS. Now this is a different thing from what we've done so far. We used to say AWS S3 and LS or MB, that kind of stuff. Now we're using AWS S3 API put bucket encryption bucket my, well, the name of my bucket is let me get the name of my bucket that I just created. This is the name of my bucket, and once again, currently we have the AES 256 encryption, and we're gonna change that encryption to something else. So I'm gonna copy the name of the bucket, right? So at this point I have to say server side encryption configuration, right? So AWS S3 API put bucket encryption bucket, and I put the bucket name here, and I'm saying server side encryption configuration, and right here I will include the file that I showed you, right? So policy.json. Now this was the policy.json, contents of policy.json. So let's see what happens when I do this. Okay, so we didn't get any errors, which means that probably everything went well. And to confirm that, I'm just gonna go back to my bucket, and as you can see, it's still AES 256, but I haven't refreshed this. So once I refresh, now the default encryption is AWS KMS. Now as you can see, if I upload a random file to let me see, so why don't we do this through the command line interface. So if I say AWS S3 copy, I'm going to copy the policy.json to test bucket 123 RT. Right, so I didn't put any encryption flag or anything, I just uploaded the file. Now let's go back to the console, refresh this, check on the file, and I can see that it's encrypted with KMS, right? Now what if I want to switch to a different type of encryption? And for that I have made another file ready. So policy.json is the one we used just now. I also have a policy sse.json, so I'm gonna go back to the put bucket encryption command that I used earlier, and instead of policy.json I'm gonna say policy sse.json. And before we move further, let's see what's inside the policy sse.json. So the only difference is right here. So instead of here being KMS and me providing the KMS ID, the key ID right here, so this becomes AES 256. I don't have to provide a key ID because the key is taken care of by Amazon at this point if I use the SSC S3 encryption. So since I already executed this command and I didn't get any error, if I go back to my bucket, then now the default encryption should be not KMS, right? So it still shows KMS, but what if I refresh? Now it's AES 256. So we were able to change the encryption type, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna upload a new file, policy.ssc.json, to the bucket. And now let's see the encryption type of both of those files or objects. So the first one, if I click on this, still has KMS, because when we uploaded, the default encryption type was KMS. Now if I click on the second one, AES 256, because when I uploaded the file or object, the default encryption type was AES 256, or server-side encryption S3. So this is how you do it, to implement server-side encryption on a bucket level, or I would say you would implement default encryption on a bucket level, so that any file or object you upload to the bucket will automatically be encrypted with the encryption option you choose. So this concludes the lesson. If you have any questions, please ask the questions in the discussion section. Now KMS is something that really confused me at first, and if you are planning to take exam, solutions architect exam, or sysop admin exam, or even developer associate exam, I think you will get a couple of questions surrounding the type of encryption keys. So I hope at least you get an idea of when to use which type of server-side encryption, right? I think we are all clear on that. Now, small details here and there might not be that clear, but if you read on the documentation for the KMS, and if you read on the white papers for KMS, there's a white paper just for the KMS. I think you'll have even better idea on what's actually going on when we implement server-side encryption. And with that, I want to conclude this section. I will see you in the next section.